Welcome to tonight's program, Cultural Activism, Art to Change the World, with Adah Hetko and Anthony Mordechai Tzvi Russell. The Workers' Circle is a Jewish social justice organization that builds progressive Jewish identity through cultural engagement, the promotion of Yiddish language and traditions, and social justice activism. All of it with the goal of inspiring collective engagement and impactful social change. Today, much of our work is focused on fighting wide-scale voter suppression in the United States by making sure that everyone has a pathway to vote in 2024, and we're committed to building a multiracial, multicultural democracy for everyone. Since our founding in 1900, our community has been committed to building a schönere and bessere Welt für alle, a better world for all. When we think about activism for world change, I think most of us tend to think of picket signs, marches, rallies. But today we're starting a very important exploration of cultural activism, looking at the myriad of ways people today are using our rich Jewish cultural heritage to affect social change. Cultural activism has deep roots in our Jewish, Yiddish, and Workers' Circle traditions altogether. And I'm really excited that tonight's program will begin to unpack the many ways cultural activism is happening around us and truly changing our world for the better. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Anthony Mordechai Tzvi Russell, a vocalist, composer, and arranger specializing in music in the Yiddish language. Anthony's work in traditional Ashkenazi Jewish musical forms led to a musical exploration of his own ethnic roots through the research, arrangement, and performance of 100 years of African-American roots music, resulting in the EP Convergence, a collaboration with klezmer concert Voretsky Pass. Anthony also regularly performs in a duo, Tzvi Breeder, with accordionist and pianist Dmitry Gaskin, composing and performing their original music set to modernist Yiddish poetry of the 20th century. I'm also very pleased to add that Anthony has been consulting with the Workers' Circle around Jewish culture, racial justice, and Yiddishkeit since the fall of 2020. Anthony currently lives in Atlanta with his husband, Rabbi Michael Rothbaum. And now it's my great pleasure to turn the microphone over to Anthony.
Thank you, Anne. Good evening, and welcome to a program exploring the concept of cultural activism, not merely as a phenomenon, but through the work of a diverse group of creative people who are defining what activism could be in our contemporary moment. But before we dive in, what is generally understood as cultural activism? It's the use of or creation of work in the cultural sphere, music, visual art, literature, films, performance art, and criticism, to present and promote themes and ideas for the purposes of social change. It's art that's created with the intention of engaging its audiences in a conversation about some of the most consequential issues that impact us today. For me, one of the most interesting aspects of cultural activism is the way in which it moves beyond its political moment, from an element of activism into the future as an element of culture. One often has to remind audiences that the Crucible was as much about the Red Scare in the 1950s as it was about a set of witch trials in the 1690s. It's rare that one gets the opportunity to speak to an artist in the midst of their activism, which is why I'm delighted to be speaking with our guest tonight. Adah Hetko is a Yiddish singer, songwriter, dance leader, and educator based in Boston, Massachusetts. Her musical work is featured on the recently released album titled Leviosan's Lullaby, released by Borscht Beat, a wonderful music label which has also released music of mine. Adah's work includes an ethnographic study of contemporary Yiddish women singers, the co-founding of the Western Massachusetts-based klezmer band Borekas, the study of Yiddish song and dance leading with veteran artist Judy Bressler, who actually happens to be one of my most favorite people in the entire world, and the teaching of Yiddish songs to students of all ages. It is my great pleasure to welcome to this program my friend and colleague, Adah Hetko.
Thank you so much, Anthony. It's so great to be here.
Thank you for being with us this evening. So, Ada, I was doing a little bit of digging and I saw that last night you had a concert with your ensemble Leviosen with the Boston Festival of New Jewish Music, which is a real regional incubator for new sounds in Jewish music. How did that performance go and what did you perform?
It was great. It was a really lovely performance. Um, I I've been really working on this set of music for a long time because the part of the concept of the festival is that it's presenting new work that's never been performed before. So that's the ideal form of the festival. So I really took that to heart and took the opportunity to work on a lot of material that was like half written, not quite all the way ready, and see if I could get it together by the finish line. So it was a wide range of things, a new translation and arrangement of Morris Winchevsky's labor anthem from the 1890s, Die Zukunft, the future, a bunch of new vocal arrangements by Lysander Jaffe, one of the members of Leviosen. And we also debuted a new Yiddish translation of Taylor Swift's song Willow. So really a variety pack.
Okay, all you Yiddish Swifties, you're in luck.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a front in the Yiddish translation world, but here we are. Okay, that's exciting. Um, so earlier, just a few minutes ago, I gave a very general definition of cultural activism as work in the cultural sphere that presents themes or ideas for the purposes of social change. Ada, for you, what is your personal definition of cultural activism?
Yeah, when I think about cultural activism, I think about this like digging process. Like you're like in the sandbox and you're seeing what's down there. Ooh, is there a nice shell? Is there something searching for gems. Um and then there's the aspect of being a community with people. That's another sort of searching for gems, learning from mentors and peers. And and then there's this element of using, like, you're educating yourself as much as possible about the cultural tradition constantly, and then using what you know and your own voice to create work that manifests the world that you want to see.
That feels very much of a piece with a lot of aspects of Jewish tradition. The idea that, you have to enact the world that you want to see. You have to be a decent person and for the purposes of being a decent person, not necessarily because you believe in something, but that's the right thing to do. And I guess for you, a part of cultural activism is figuring out how to do that through your work.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I'm often piecing together um, what I find and what I create, and I feel like one of the themes of last night was something old and something new, because every song that we presented had some grounding in existing Yiddish culture and some piece that was newly created. Um, yeah, so exactly. It's totally related to Tikkun Olam, I think, placing all the pieces together.
Mm. So, what contemporary issues motivate and impact you both as a person and as an artist? And how do those end up in your work?
Yeah, one of the big issues that's on my mind a lot is gender and sexuality and trans rights issues. And um, I think this is on a lot of our minds right now, the current moment. Um, and the ways that this manifests for me, part of how this manifested for me, has manifested for me, is choosing to write my master's thesis about Yiddish women singers and focusing on the Yiddish folk song tradition, which, to quote folklorist Itzik Gottesman, was 80%, at least 80% created by women. There's a really strong connection between Yiddish folk song and women's creativity. And being inclusive in my thesis and talking to trans women who are part of the Yiddish song world, and really, really valuing the work that women do to create the scene. And the Rosa Daniel Lang Levitsky was one of the people I interviewed for my thesis, and she said, "You know that lesbians created the klezmer revival, right?" And it took me a minute, and then I was like, "Wait a second, you're completely right." So taking up space myself as a woman and as a queer woman in the scene and doing my thing, supporting other people doing their thing. I love working with men. I want to give a shout out to Michael Winograd to being a tremendous mensch in hiring, in gender balance and hiring, for festivals and for his own band, stuff like that. Trying to show up in this little corner of my world, in the best way possible.
It's interesting because I think when I started working in kind of the Yiddish language and culture scene, it just looked very different. And now, because of actors like yourself within the scene, things have really changed. You can feel it. It's not a giant boys club like it used to feel like at the time, you know. So that's like a really wonderful thing to see. I'm curious if there's any of your engagement with these issues that makes its way into your work, like literally into your work. Like, are you writing about this? Are you singing about this? Are you composing about this? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I have an original song called Margarit Kelech on an Eck, which is a sort of a ballad to summertime in Western Mass. I was there working at the Yiddish Book Center, and it's very, as in, this like sort of idyllic Yiddish community situation, with a group of friends on staff and wonderful students, and um, enjoying the beautiful mountains and and that summer, um, I looked at the song packet from the previous summer and saw, like, wait a second, this song, Margarit Kelech, which is based on a Zalman Schnorr poem, uh, it was just coming into conversation in the Yiddish song scene, that it's not clear that it's like a love song, but it's not clear that this situation is really consensual. It's not like
You're
that it's
you're
okay.
you're talking to somebody who basically, so I was learning that song actively, I think circa 19, not 19, circa 2012, 2013. And that was right around when people were like, this song is sort of describing a situation in which we don't really know how the woman in the situation is responding to the attentions of this man. And as such, maybe we should really think twice about singing this song. And it just never made it into my repertoire because I'm like, well, I'm not interested in trying to give my take on this situation. And it's seeming like you also encountered that with this particular song, Margarit Galech.
Yeah, exactly. So this was a couple of years later for me, but the same sort of like, lots of people sing this song. It's a great melody, it's a fabulous melody. Um, it's very poetic, and I don't want to sing it. And so I was like, okay, but Margaritkele. Oh, what a beautiful, that means daisies. What a beautiful word. What a beautiful word to sing. So then I wrote a different song that uses the word Margaritkele and describes a field of daisies. And it's about being in community and enjoying nature. And there's no uncertain uh, tragedy lurking behind it.
Right, right. There's none of that kind of disturbing vagueness at the very end of the song. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think now is a good time for us to listen to some of your work. Can you tell us about the song Rote Apple Grüne Schottens, which, if my Yiddish is a little less rusty, is red apples, green shadows, correct?
Yeah, red apples, green shadows. And this is a perfect transition because Zalman Schnoor also wrote the text for this song. And I also think that the text for this song is creepy. So what I did, and I think the edit for this clip will show me explaining this again. But what I did was I excised the parts that I didn't like. And I just to shout out Itzik Gottesman again, I found this song on Yiddish Song of the Week, which is a wonderful resource for field recordings of Yiddish songs, and I thought it was lovely, and yeah, I'm a total nature song junkie, uh, so I kept in the nature bits, the beautiful descriptions.
Yiddish Song of the Week is such an amazing resource. So much of my repertoire sort of began there. So it's wonderful that you found this there. I also want to say this, this practice of excising something from a text that is not working for you is a very, very Jewish practice. Um, I always think about the tradition of the Geniza, where it's like there's something that you don't necessarily need anymore, but you also don't want to throw it away, so you put it in an area of a space, so it's there, but it's not exactly like in currency in the same way other things are, and maybe that to some degree is what you're doing with some of these texts. All right. I would love an opportunity, Danielle, if you're on tap, to for us to experience Rote Appels, Grüne Schotten.
This is our arrangement of a poem by Zalman Schnoor that he wrote when he was 19 and he was living in Vilna. That was set to music by Samuel Bugach, and this is our version of it where we excise the parts that we didn't like. And I feel inspired by Michael Alpert and Craig Udelman the other night talking about reshaping songs in ways that feel better to sing. So that's the thing that we did. We kept all of the beautiful nature imagery and we took out the creepy parts. I encourage everybody to try that at home. Von der Welt und von mein
Okay, for my money, that ended entirely too soon. I think I'm going to have to write more verses.
Oh, that's a great idea. That way.
What a beautiful melody, what a beautiful rendition of that song. That's great.
Oh, thank you. That was Lysander Jaffe on violin, Kaya Berman Peters on accordion, and Rafi Bowden on cello.
Very, very nice. And when was that performance?
That was at the end of December at Yiddish, New York.
Very nice, very nice. So, that of course was our guest Adah Hetko with her ensemble Leviosen performing Rote Äppel, Grüne Schottens from their album Leviosen's Lullaby. Ada, who are your favorite cultural activists or works of cultural activism? I had mentioned before Arthur Miller's The Crucible as kind of a form of cultural activism. Who are your favorite cultural activists?
One of my favorite cultural activists right now is poet Irina Klepfitz. I recently had the great pleasure and privilege of taking a class with her, a workshop with her. And one of the things that she's a wonderful teacher. And one of the things that I admire about her is that we're in this moment where there's a lot of it goes without saying, there's a lot of tension in the Jewish community about what's happening in Gaza and in Israel. And she was able to create this trusting, intimate space where multiple participants in the workshopped their poetry that was explicitly about their strong feelings about what's happening. And we were able to stay a community. It was incredible. And her strategy for this was to, she's very, very good at posing questions as a means of facilitation. And so when things started to get tense and everybody sort of like, what's going to happen? She posed a couple of questions to us. And one of them was, as a writer, okay, first, as a reader, how do you analyze poetry that expresses politics that you don't agree with? How do you analyze the aesthetics of poetry that you don't agree with politically? And then as a writer, how do you write poetry that's so engaging that someone who doesn't agree with it politically will read it to the end? And it just like completely transformed the feeling in the room, and suddenly we were back in this place of like calm engagement. And that's just it's so beautiful and so rare to have that like dexterous leadership and wisdom from an elder.
I've often defined good art as being something that engages a community in an act of deep listening, right? It gives people who are experiencing it the opportunity to sit down and to hear what one person has to say, which means when somebody has something to say of social relevance, it's even more powerful because they really are feeling the need to be able to say it. I'd also like to say that Irene Klettfish is a member of our Worker Circle community. So she's done some programming for us, and I believe that she's involved in the leadership here. So it's amazing to know that you've experienced her work as an artist in that particular kind of way. Are there any other like artists or any other particular pieces of work that inspire you as a cultural activist?
There's so many people. Before this meeting, I started writing a list and it just kept going and going and going because I grew up in this like art-soaked environment. I'm very lucky in that regard, where I was just like around. My dad is a musician and my mom has run an interfaith storytelling project for, I don't know, many, many years. And so I just have been around lots of artists for my whole life. And yeah, it's hard to pick it's hard to pick specific people. One person that came to mind was Ruth Pelham, who's a singer-songwriter. I grew up near Albany, New York. And she's a local celebrity because everybody in my generation and a little bit younger, and a lot of people who are like 5 to 10 years older um, grew up here. She's an incredible educator and children's uh, oh, it's hard to, okay, I have to tell you more details. It's like the scope of it won't be clear from just saying she's like a children's musician. So she started this project called Music Mobile, and the whole concept is going out with other educators into parks in Albany during the summertime and doing free programming for kids. And it's like she's like really, really good at it. She's a really, really good teacher. And I learned so much about teaching. I worked with her for a summer and yeah, so like everybody I knew who she was because their parents had taken them to one of her programs. And she ended up really pushing the city of Albany to provide programming for kids in the summertime. So this whole like shift in where city funding was going happened because of her work. So that's like one level of it, and then just all of the personal connections and all of the kids that she worked with it's really tremendous.
That's beautiful. I also didn't know that you grew up in the Albany area. I lived in Hudson, New York for a while, which is nearby. Actually, that's where I started my career as a Yiddishist, was in Hudson, New York. So, a small world, a kleine Welt. Um, so as a musician, what are the ways you think music is an especially effective way of conveying a message to your listeners? Like, how is music, you know, more in a way set up to be able to interact with ideas and to interact with people's feelings and opinions and maybe other media?
Yeah, I think music is extremely physical. I mean, all art is physical, but like if you're, I was like,
Conceptual art
yeah,
is
right,
sort
right,
of
right.
not physical, but I mean, it's
Yeah,
often experienced in a physical fashion, so I suppose there's that. But no, I
yeah.
can see music is sort of visceral, right? It sort of happens to you.
Right. You enter a room, music is happening, you're immediately going to turn toward the music. And even if you don't like it, you're going to notice it. And I think there's also I really in my performances aim to create a like a calm, focused energy, as well as like playful. I do a lot of like silly banter in between songs, but I like slow songs. I also like fast songs, but like I try to get like everybody like get your heart rate down, like get a calm energy. And I've been told that some babies have fallen asleep to my music, and I feel very good about that.
So it's
Probably
not just Leviosa's lullaby, it's also, for Alle Kinder, it's also their lullaby as well, I guess, right?
exactly. Also available for adults. You can fall asleep to my music. Um, I think it's really good for creating a good feeling space that can open. It's like the sun shining and a flower blooms. Like I feel like there's a human response to music that opens people up, and that's what I aim to cultivate.
I remember one of the first times I heard you, the vocalist who you reminded me most of was Joni Mitchell. Because you just had this really beautiful kind of calm, but also like confident, like, soprano voice. And as somebody who often is trying to put a message across to my audience as well about the things that I care about, I often think about the fact that like beauty is a tool for the artist and especially for the musician. um, People don't necessarily know that they're experiencing some of the most meaningful or consequential or painful moments of the creator's life because they've turned it into this piece of art that they're interacting with. And oftentimes, beauty is a way of telling some of the most important or meaningful or politically relevant stories that one could tell. Do you often find that that's the case in what you're doing as well?
Yeah, definitely. To be totally honest, I write songs constantly. I can't stop. I'm completely addicted, completely obsessed.
We're
Um,
lucky.
I am lucky. Yeah, it's a blessing. It's great. And I have many, many, many songs these aren't like things that I've polished like a stone to share, they're like reasons um that I don't share these songs, but I have many, many, many songs that are like my diary going back 10, 12 years, that are things that are too personal to share. Um and for me, that's part of like music is very, very much about personal healing. And even though I'm not maybe, maybe someday I'll share some of those songs, but even though I'm not sharing those songs now, that space that I get into when I'm writing a song that's really about me processing my feelings in a cathartic, productive way is what I want people to experience when they're hearing my music. I want them to get into that state of personal healing.
Yes, it's like an engaging conversation that you're having with the audience. They're getting to know you and you're getting to know them. So I think now it's time to listen to a little bit more of your work. What can you tell us about Feierdige Menschen or Two Passionate People?
This is a song that I wrote for my friend Erin Shonsky, who met a lady on the internet during yes, it happens. And Aaron was one of the first people that I met in the Yiddish world. I went to Kles camp in 2013, and he was nice to me, and we hung out, and we've been friends ever since. And so I appreciate, like, to me, Aaron is like a symbol of the hang, the importance of the hang. And this song in some ways is like an ode. It's about romantic love in that it's a gift to Aaron and his wife for their wedding, but it's also to me like an ode to the passion for Yiddish and the community that creates. Aaron called me up to tell me about Shuli, his wife, and he explained that, or I guess called me up this way, it's on his cell phone. He explained that they're really good together because Shuli is really passionate and he's really passionate. They understand that about each other. And he said, that I'm passionate about Yiddish and she's just as passionate about tortoises. And my partner, Lysander, is very passionate about lizards. So I feel like it's also a celebration of the reptiles in our lives. Um, and now they have an adorable baby as well as a rescue lizard. And so this is also a song of um, Yiddish community and yeah.
Feierdige Menschen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking forward to hearing this. Feierdige Menschen, Two Passionate People.
zwei feierdige Menschen mit Geläumes, der zweiter gut versteht, sind in eine dem anderen, wachen auf warme Fahrtogen, flechten an Hand und Hals. Als Strahl, als Abschein, als Finkel, als Glimmer, als Scheinung, als Blendung, als Blitz. Wie ein Glas auf der Sonne, wie brillant der Million, wie heiß und hell und heilig, wie ein Feierhitz. Und wie heiß und hell und heilig, Feierhitz. When two passionate people with dreams the other understands come together and make sparks, conjure rosy dawn from dark, interlace their hands and hearts. What a sparkle, what a glimmer, what a shine, what a shimmer, what a sunbeam, what a blinding ray of light. Like a field of fireflies, starlight strung across dark skies, burning hot and bright and holy as firelight, burning hot and bright and holy through the night. Wie ein Glas auf der Sonne, wie brillant der Million, wie heiß und hell und heilig, wie ein Feierhitz. Und wie heiß und hell und heilig,
I feel like I've just experienced like the first breath of spring. That was so gorgeous.
you.
You're making it very hard for me to do my job here. I'm supposed to feel like, I'm an objective, surveyor of the work that I'm presenting to this audience. But that was really, really beautiful.
Thank you so much.
I love the way that you've created, you and the band has created a sort of like traditional Eastern European, Central European Yiddish folk idiom, but it's also like an American folk idiom as well, and how you kind of mix the two or combine the two to create the music that you do. It's just really, really beautiful. So
Thank
that
you.
was our guest, Adah Hetko, with her ensemble Leviosen, performing Feierliche Menschen, Two Passionate People from their album Leviosen's Lullaby. At this point, I'd like to invite our audience out there, if they happen to have any questions for Adah, to put them in the chat, and we'll bring them into the conversation shortly. So am I right that that song is an original composition of yours?
That's an original composition, and the introduction is a doina, which is a traditional improvised form. So that's the traddest part. And
Right.
then at the very end, we tag on a tiny, tiny bit of the doina energy again to bookend it.
It's interesting because it's like you're sort of bringing in two different sort of like fiddle traditions. There's kind of like an old time fiddle piece sort of at the end, and there's the doina at the beginning, and then in between that is kind of this meadow into which you've built this song. It's just really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. So, given the precedence of political identity expressed in the Yiddish language, there's a long history of cultural activism of various kinds in the Yiddish language and in Yiddish culture. As an artist, do you feel inspired by this history? And what do you feel like your relationship is to that history of a political expression in the Yiddish language?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm in this moment in time, this long moment, the several past months, I've been very very much exploring how to engage with the with the Yiddish song tradition in light of what's happening in Gaza. And one of the pieces of that is that I've been helping a couple of friends work on songs in Yiddish, expressing their feelings about what's happening. And I I was also able to be part of workshopping those songs along with Josh Waletsky and Dan Kahn at Yiddish New York, where we also did this concert, and have continued in conversation with those two friends. So for me, I have not had a moment of inspiration in Yiddish for my song. But I've been really glad to support other people in contributing to that. And one of those songs um, quotes a couple of Yiddish existing Yiddish resistance anthems. So
You,
I think that's a really cool process of borrowing.
Right, right, of including that kind of history of resistance of one kind or another into the mix. I'm reminded as you're talking about this that there's a very old tradition of writing about wars in Yiddish folk song. Um, there are several folk songs that I know myself that were either about the Russo-Japanese War, which is around the turn of the century and affected a lot of people, Jewish people living in the former Russian Empire because they were often conscripted into that war. And then a lot of Yiddish songs about World War One as well, and about what happened to Jewish men who ended up fighting in World War One and when they came back. So in a way, it's very traditional to write about conflict that's happening in the world because that's been one of the things that people who've been involved in Yiddish song have been doing for over 100 years now. All right, so I believe we have a question, And if you have any other questions, please drop them in the Q&A box and I'll be happy to ask them. Can you share a little about being a dance leader or about Yiddish dance? And I feel like this is really important because when you learn, in my experience, when you learn one part of this tradition of Yiddish culture, it's very hard to section yourself off from other parts of the tradition. Like if you're learning about music, eventually you're learning about instrumental forms. And if you're learning about instrumental forms, eventually you're learning about dance. If you're learning about dance, you're learning about song. If you're learning about song, you're learning about cooking. So how does Yiddish dance figure into the work that you do?
That's a great question. I started dance leading because I am a singer and I was playing with Burikis, which is a Western Mass-based klezmer band, and it's a big band. It's 6 people, and I play acoustic guitar. And at the time, I was playing a nylon string guitar, and I was completely unable to hear myself playing guitar. So I was like, okay, this is not working. So I mostly stopped playing guitar with that band, but I jumped down from the stage and would lead dancing. And I'd learned dances from Asya Schulman and from Avia Moore. Just like you were saying, like if you go to the festivals, if you go to the things, even if you think you're coming for one particular art form, you end up doing the other. So I did a lot of dancing, and we also started getting hired for wedding gigs and bar and bat mitzvah gigs, and so it was a very natural thing to start dance leading more. And recently, I've been studying with Judy Bressler, who's a tremendous Yiddish singer and dance leader, and she's had the same. Judy isn't an instrumentalist, and so she also had the freedom when she wasn't singing with the Klezmer Conservatory Band over her long career with them. She would jump down from the stage and lead dancing, and she's an excellent dance leader. She creates a party anywhere.
I love Judy Bressler. She's, like I said before, she's one of my favorite people in the world. The very first album I ever recorded was with her. And she's just like such a generous presence and just like, oh, she's so great. So
Yeah.
somebody in the comments was curious about songs about the Russo-Japanese War. I'm actually going to drop one song in the chat. This is from Yiddish Song of the Week, and it's called In the Year 1904. And it's about the experience of a soldier going off to the Russo-Japanese War.
Oh, I think you muted yourself.
Sorry, I was going to see if there was any more questions that we happen to have here. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Oh, somebody just bought the album
Oh, thank
while we
you.
were on bought your album while we were on this conversation. So that's
That's so nice.
exciting.
Yeah. Oh, I can show off the album.
Please do, because there's some beautiful art. Yes,
Copy
there
right
we are.
here. As Anthony said, this is through Borscht Beat Records. They're putting out really cool stuff all the time. Aaron Bendich, another cultural activist.
Aaron Bendich is amazing. So I just released my last album with him, Cosmopolitan, and it was really great knowing that there was a label that was interested in new Jewish music. So I was really pleased to find out that Leviosa's Lullaby it was released through them as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll also show off some prints because
Please
I've
do.
into printmaking recently. This is our Leviosan print, and this is based on a medieval manuscript. So this is totally in line with being a nerd doing my research. And then this one is a print that I made much more recently for one of the songs on our album, which is called Viennese, and it's a setting of a poem by Zusman Segalovich. And the crux of the poem is this incredible slant rhyme between the word bez. This is my approximation of his handwriting. So it's very messy, but it says bez, which means lilac in Yiddish, and then nes, which means miracle. And here's a lilac branch stretching in between them. So this is something I made recently. I was working on it late into the night before Yiddish New York, trying to finish it in time. So
I'm
showing
not
off.
seeing any hurry there at all. It looks really beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks.
So, Adah, I'd like to thank you for speaking with us and for sharing your work with us this evening. For anybody who's just come in, I've been talking with Adah Hetko, Yiddish singer, songwriter, dance leader, educator, based in Boston, whose work is featured on the recently released album titled Leviosen's Lullaby, released on the Borscht Beat label. And I'm actually going to go ahead and drop some links that will allow people to be able to find some more information about all of this lovely music. I'm going to go ahead and do this now. There they are. All right. Adah, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And thank you for introducing us to your work. On Tuesday, March 12th at 7 p.m. Eastern is Redefining Jewish Orthodoxy Through the Arts, a book talk with guest artists exploring the contributions of women within the Yiddish-speaking world, including those who have left their religious communities to become public performers. This conversation will offer a unique perspective on the ultra-Orthodox women's art scene, including music, film, and dance. That program is titled Redefining Jewish Orthodoxy Through the Arts on Tuesday, March 12th at 7 p.m. Eastern. On Thursday, March 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern is How to Be an Effective Citizen Advocate, a training led by Andrea Miller, co-founder of the Center for Common Ground, and Noelle D'Amico, our very own Workers' Circle Director of Social Justice. This program will empower you with tools to effectively engage your legislators in their district offices in your home state around the perennial issue of voting rights. That program is How to Be an Effective Citizen Advocate on Thursday, March 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern. For more information on these events and other programs and events happening at the Worker Circle, please visit us at circle.org. I would like to give a sincere thanks to our guest and to all of our co-sponsors whose names you will see in the chat for their assistance in getting the word out on this program. Our heartfelt thanks to Avodah, Bechol Lashon, Boston Workers Circle, Congregation Beit Simchat Torah, and Society for Humanistic Judaism. If you enjoyed tonight's conversation, please be in touch and please tell your friends. I'm Anthony Mordechai Russell, and this has been Cultural Activism, Art to Change the World. Good night.